let's go to the West here because kind of there's going to be some teams that might not pass this grade. So we'll start with the defending champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They got the win against the Jets this last week. They're 3-1. They lost against the Lions in week 1. Thoughts on the Chiefs and their grade?
Yeah, so the Chiefs lose a tough game versus the Lions. You're able to lock down the Jaguars. Travis Kelce working his way back. Your weapons aren't the greatest outside of Travis Kelce, with Sky Moore underperforming. Kadarius Toney looking awful so far. As soon as you have commentators talking about his blocking instead of his receiving, that's definitely a problem for the Kansas City Chiefs. But overall, you still started 3-1. You had some breaks go your way versus the Jets, but I'm gonna give them a B- just because you're 3-1. You put yourself in position to still be the best team in your division. I've been impressed with their defense so far. It's one of the best Kansas City defenses in a while. I think it's the best team since they won the Super Bowl against San Francisco. So gonna give them a B-. Definitely some things they need to work on, but they're still the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You're still 3-1, so can't go below a B-level grade for them, but still have to go with a B- because the offense hasn't looked as dynamic as it could be.
Yeah, I'll give it a B because I think their defense has been the story. You have George Karlaftis, that second-year leap. He's been playing very well. You have Chris Jones. There was a lot of noise that kind of started this year with, Travis Kelce getting hurt and then Chris Jones having that contract dispute. And now they've really stepped in. Their defense has played fantastic. But I can't give them an A because of their receivers, like you mentioned. Sky Moore, where have you been?
Yeah.
And then other than that, you have the Rashid Rice of the world and the Noah Grays. And these aren't, disrespect to these guys, but the receivers need to step up. The receivers look very weak right now, and they don't seem like a team that can blow out. I mean, you have Patrick Mahomes, so obviously he's going to do his thing, but I just don't think that their offense hasn't fully hit gears yet. And so I'll leave them at a B, but, they're still going to be in it at the end, and they still could potentially get that number 1 seed. So give them a B for now.
Yeah, give them a B for now. And then falls off pretty quickly here. Let's end with the Chargers and go to the Broncos next. This was a team that with Sean Payton, he was talking smack to start the year. He's like, everything that happened last year, I don't know what the coaching staff was doing last year, but I want to do everything differently. Russell Wilson, your trainer, he's out of here, and then we're going to make the playoffs. And then we were like, I don't know in preseason with this team. I don't know if they're a lock to make the playoffs. And I think there's still some issues with this team, and we're sounding the alarm. And then we get a lot of pushback from Broncos fans, but so far the Broncos get an F for me. Because you're supposed to be retuning Russ, but your defense is still supposed to be dynamic for this team. Your defense was electric last year. The defense has taken a massive step back. You gave up 70 points. You wouldn't even give Mike McDaniel an interview to be your head coach. He took that personally. He watched The Last Dance. He hung 70 points on your head. You lose to the Raiders. That looks awful now. You blow a 21-3 lead versus the Commanders. That is inexcusable at home. You drop your first 2 home games and then you almost lose to the Bears, who are looking lost, being rated by the FBI. Justin Fields was talking about how he can't process information. F, 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 and F.
You can't get much worse than an F, but I'm going to find a way. I'm giving them a G at this point because goddamn, this is horrible. First of all, you lose to the Raiders in week 1, which is starting to look pretty bad. And then you blow that lead to the Commanders, and then you get a 70 burger drop in you, something that hasn't happened since the 60s, by the way. And then you have a 28-7 deficit against the Bears. I'm sorry. I don't care what it says on the scoreboard. You still lost that game. So realistically, in my world, you are 0-4. And this is a team that had a top 5 defense in the league last year. If they had a 24th ranked offense, they would have made the playoffs last year. And now your offense is fine, and your defense is the worst defense I've ever seen. How do you let Justin Fields cook you? How do you, the Dolphins, them putting up points is no problem, but 70? 70 points. You let A-Train run all over you. You let Raheem Mostert run all over you. You let everybody run over you. That defense is pathetic.
Without Waddle.
Without Waddle, too. So you have River Craft cooking you.
Braxton Berrios,
the ageless wonder that is him. This is like one of the most disappointing teams for a team that people consider to be playoffs. This team is pathetic. Russell Wilson still sucks.
Yeah.
The receiver core is not impressive. We called that earlier. So, I mean, you can't get much lower than an F. I could give them an F minus.
Yeah, you gave them a G for God damn, you're bad. Oh my God.
Pathetic.
And then, the lowly Raiders. With the Raiders, I've been saying Josh McDaniels being a head coach of your team is not necessarily proven to be a good thing unless he's cheating. And so far, that has been the case. Devontae Adams is frustrated. Max Crosby is frustrated with Josh McDaniels. And then you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, you picked the Raiders schedule this offseason, and you're picking it based on the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo probably isn't going to be there most of the time. Jimmy Garoppolo's already out. Aiden O'Connell comes in there, gets sacked 6 times, fumbles the ball, can barely hold on to it. He has the hands of a fish when it comes on to holding the ball. His hands are greased up, lubed up with baby oil. He looks like he's in Baywatch. Keeps dropping the ball left and right. So the Raiders get an F. We had a Raiders fan comment on our post. He leaves a long paragraph and then he's like, oh yeah, you forgot to mention our punter. And then he goes through all this with, we may be good, man, but at the end of the day, maybe not. Well, the Raiders aren't looking good so far, have underachieved somehow with how bad they've been, and then you get annihilated by the Bills. You beat the Broncos 17-16, or 19-16, 17-16. So you beat the Broncos by 1 point. That doesn't look impressive anymore. And then you get blown out by the Chargers. You can't even capitalize on Brandon Staley's dumb mistakes again. So you get an F.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not passing my grade school. I'm going to give them a D because the Raiders, I expected them to finish last. So for them, where they are, not super surprised. They had a weird game against the Steelers that they probably should have won. And then this Chargers game, maybe they could have came back. But at the end of the day, Josh Jacobs has not been playing Josh Jacobs football. Devontae Adams, he's still getting his. But this team is just, no matter how much talent they have, they always find a way to disappoint. And, it's really just Mason Crosby on that defense. Tyree Wilson, woof. He hasn't had really anything going for him whatsoever. His pressure rate is at 0%, which is the worst of any rookie this millennium. So they look like they've whiffed yet again on a first-round pick. So they ain't passing my grade school. I'm giving them a D. Josh McDaniels should be fired midseason, and it's utter chaos for the Raiders per usual.
Yeah, utter chaos for the Raiders per usual. I give them an F just because it's been a failure so far. You won one game, but you still were in there versus the Steelers, and then Josh McDaniels' dumb play calling, not going for the touchdown when you had a chance to tie that game there. So you've underachieved in my book, and then comes the Chargers. Start out 0-2, and then the 2 games you do win, Brandon Staley tries to give the game away. You end up recouping being 2-2, but Austin Eckler is out right now, probably not in a hurry to come back because you don't want to pay him. And then Mike Williams is gone for the year, and then you've shown signs that you're still the same old Chargers, and they honestly look worse than they have last year. You've underachieved so far in my book. Justin Herbert has played well in spots, but there's just still, like, he's always really good, really talented, but there's always something missing there. So for the Chargers, have to give them a D here. I think there's no excuse for you to be 2-2. You've had chances to win games versus Tennessee. You had a chance in week 1 to win that game, and you gave it away. So got to give them a D.
I will give them a D- because this is a team that there's a lot of games where it came down to just poor play calling. It's really the coaching that's tearing this team apart. And then also, Justin Herbert, great quarterback, top 10 quarterback in the league, no doubt about it. But at the same time, where do you go in the second half? Do you go on vacation? I mean, I know how beautiful California is, but do you really need to leave the stadium and go out and get a taco on one of the taco stands? Because this team, like the second half Chargers are pathetic. They had a 24-7 lead against the Raiders, and they muster 27 yards of offense against the Raiders of all teams. Pathetic team, and now they're getting injuries riled up against them. You hate to see it, but at the same time, we look in the rest of the AFC, and I don't really have faith in them. I think that they can get a wild card spot, but Brandon Staley's going to just keep dragging them down. And this is a guy who should be fired mid-season. Probably should have never came out to begin with after that 27-0 collapse that they had. So I'll give them a D-, but this team is just disappointing in every level.
Yeah, disappointing team, underachieved on every level. So Chiefs struggle out the gate, gave them a B-. Broncos, F's all around. You gave them a G for goddamn you suck. I gave the Raiders a F so far because they've underachieved. You gave them a...
I think I gave them a D.
Yeah. So far, AFC West has been very disappointing.